Turn with me to the 15th chapter of Luke. We'll begin with the 11th verse. Say amen when you have it. Amen. Jesus continued, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired men have food to spare, and here I am, starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired men.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to the servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf because he is back safe and sound.' The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders, yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him?' 'My son,' the father replied, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.'" This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we thank you for this word. And Lord, we ask that you move in this place at this moment, God, that this be all about you and that we see you more clearly, that we know you better. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Now, before we dive into our primary text for today, it's important to understand the context. The 15th chapter of Luke is a series, it's a trilogy. It's 3 parts. The first of those is a parable of the one lost sheep. So the shepherd has left the 99 to go find the one lost sheep. The second parable is of the woman who's lost one of her 10 silver coins. She looks all over for the silver coin, and then she finds it, and she tells everyone about it, and they all rejoice. And then we get to the main event, to the parable of the prodigal son. The story of the prodigal son goes beyond the Bible. We hear this in media, we hear this all the time about this prodigal son, someone who's gone astray, and it's often preached and often taught from the perspective of the son, of the wages of sin, what happens when you sin. But this morning, for Father's Day, we're going to focus on the father. So the father in this story seems to be a periphery character in the beginning of this, but in reality, the father is the main character in this, because through this story, through the expressions of the father, and through the entirety of this chapter is all about showing the people there the character of God. And so in this parable, the father in this case is God. And through this, the people who are gathered more thoroughly understand the character of God. Now, let's begin with the 11th verse. So the son has broken all protocol here. Now, it's never okay to ask for your inheritance before it's given to you. We don't go around asking for birthday presents before they're given. We don't go around asking for Christmas gifts. We don't, and we would never think about how outrageous this is. They're sitting, imagine them sitting at dinner and him saying, "Well, Dad, when are you going to die so I can get my stuff? I've got places to go, I've got things to do, I need you to hurry this up. Can you be done already?" Now, the younger son is entitled to 1/3 of what his father has. So that's 1/3 of property, 1/3 of capital. And so he is asking for that right now. And so the son is asking for this, and this is the ultimate act of disrespect in Middle Eastern culture. Now, if you were to do research on Middle Eastern literature, you would find no other example of a younger son or any son challenging his father the way this son has challenged his father. He has called him out on this, and he's asked for something that doesn't even belong to him yet in this instance. Now, the father is hurt by this, because to ask for his inheritance was essentially to wish his father dead. He's essentially wishing that his father was dead so he could get what he wanted. And understandably, the father is brokenhearted over his son's request. He's given him everything. Everything he has, he's shared with his son. And now the son is so bold as to ask for his inheritance, the thing that he's supposed to get when the father gives it to him or when the father dies. So this is a very, very disrespectful act. And he's not only disregarding his father's place as the head of the household and the traditions that go with that, but he's disregarding him as his father. Now, this request is a little bit ridiculous, and most fathers wouldn't honor this. They would probably kill their son rather than to honor that request, because it's just like blood in the water. Once they get a taste for it, they're only going to want more. And so the father would get rid of this son. He already has one other son. We've already covered that. He has one son, and this son, the first son's a pretty loyal son. So he would probably remove this son from his presence. But in this case, we break with all sorts of tradition, all sorts of protocol. The father says, okay, and he gives it to him. And he knows what the son is going to do with all of this wealth. He knows that nothing good can come of this. Any son who wishes you dead probably isn't going to give this money to charity. Probably isn't going to invest this in 401k. This son is going to do some crazy things. And he knows this going into this. But he loves his son more than his riches. He loves his son more than his status. So he does it. He gives his son exactly what he asked for. Now, this is a very difficult thing for the father to do. He's parted with something that means a great deal to him, what he's worked for his entire life, what his father gave him, and his father gave him. And so he's willing to part with this, and so he lets it go. He gives 1/3 of all he has to his son. He doesn't just give 1/3 of capital, but he also gives 1/3 of his property. So extravagant generosity. He gives him another, more than his son even asked for. And the son, of course, sells property, gets money for that, and goes off. So the son goes off into this distant land, and the son is living wildly. The son is living in a way that is contrary to everything his father has taught him. He's spending lavishly. He's living in a way that is certainly sinful. He's doing all sorts of things that are absolutely incorrect. And his son, during this process, the son is caught in a famine. And the only thing worse than being caught in a famine at home is being caught in a famine in a distant land. And so the son is caught in this famine in this distant land. He spent all of his money on doing everything but the right thing. And now he's in a very, very difficult situation. Now the son is looking for work. There are no, very much like our economic times right now, there aren't that many places hiring. And the only job he can get is working as a pig attendant. So it's also important to understand that he is a self-respecting Jew from a good Jewish family, and he has to do the lowest thing that any Jew can do, and that is serve pigs. So the dirtiest animal there is, he is now servant to. So he's the one feeding the pigs and living at the lowest place that he could. This is the greatest shame a Jew could endure. And so now, if he thought he could go home before, after this, there's no way he can go home. There's no way he could go home to his well-respected Jewish family and say, by the way, here's a list of all the nasty things I did, and I served pigs. They would excuse some of the stuff, but the pig thing's a deal breaker. And so he is now at the lowest point that he could be at. He's lost everything. And if the story had stopped here, the audience would have been satisfied. Now, the audience is made up of two groups of people, the over-churched and the under-churched. And there's really no middle ground yet. So the over-churched, the Pharisees, are all about the law. You get what you get. So you follow the law, good things happen to you. You don't follow the law, bad things happen to you. And that's the end of the story. The unchurched are the people who they're talking about all the time. If you're doing bad things, you deserve what you get. And Jesus is teaching to this crowd, this very, very mixed audience, about God's grace. And so the Pharisees think that this would be a good point to stop the story. The story can end here, and now you know. If you leave your father, then bad things are going to happen to you, and you don't deserve anything. And the unchurched were waiting to hear more. They're hoping that the story doesn't stop here. They're hoping that there's an ending a happy ending for everyone.